This video, this audio, this interaction, it's gold. And who better to analyze it with than the redheaded libertarian? Josie, the redheaded libertarian. You can find her on X at TRHL Official. She hosts Spaces with Josie on X. She's also part of the Timcast Network. Joins us now on the Will Cain Show. Josie, it's nice to meet you. Nice to have you on the Will Cain Show.
It's so nice to meet you. Thank you for having me, Will.
I enjoy your content. I follow you on X, and I thought you're a pretty good person to go ahead and give me some commentary on what might go down as a Jeffersonian versus Adams exchange in Congress. So let's clue the audience in on what went down, first with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and then the voice of AOC here last week in Congress.
Do you know what we're here for? You know we're here about AG.
I don't think you know what you're here for.
Well, you the one talking about.
I think your fake eyelashes are messing up.
No,
what you're
ain't
reading.
nothing.
Hold on.
Listen.
Order.
Mr. Chairman,
That's beneath
would
even
you
your
please
history.
regain
That's beneath
order
even
of your
you.
committee?
Order.
I do have a point of order, and I would like to move to take down Ms. Greene's words. That is absolutely unacceptable. How dare you attack the physical appearance of another person?
Are your
Move
feelings hurt?
her words down.
Aw.
Oh, girl, baby girl.
Oh, really?
Don't even play. with
Baby
me.
girl? I don't think
we are
so.
going to move, and we're going to take your words down.
I second that motion.
So who will have to pay? Okay. Ms. Greene agrees to strike her words.
I believe she
Chair
needs to apologize.
recognizes
No.
Mr.
She
Perry.
needs to
Okay,
apologize.
hold on. Then after Mr. Perry's going to be recognized, then Ms. Greene
I'm not
has 4 minutes and
apologizing.
21
Well, then
seconds.
you're
reserve
not
the right to
striking your
object.
words.
I am
Mr.
not
Perry.
apologizing.
Now let's go. Come on, guys.
Okay, girl, baby, girl. My favorite part, Josie, actually might be that the minute Marjorie Taylor Greene says, maybe your eyelashes have gotten in the way, all the men, almost like at a Tom Brady roast, go, oh, immediately everyone realized, oh, here we go. What do you think, Josie?
There were highlights of that I watched them on a loop because they were just so incredible to me. But like you had said about Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, fighting in Congress goes back to the inception of America. They had their grand fight in the newspapers. There were fights in Congress. They attacked each other. They almost didn't make our country based off the Connecticut Compromise that nobody could agree on. So my opinion is let them fight. This is American to fight. I mean, I wish there were smarter people fighting. So Jasmine Crockett is not the brightest person, but the other thing about her is that whole kind of ghetto ratchet accent she puts on is actually fake. I went back and I found an interview from her from when she started before when she was running for Congress. All right. So it's like 2 years ago. And she's very well educated. All right. She's not very bright, but still had an education. She was privileged. She had an education. And she has a normal voice. But then when she goes on to Congress and she wants to get these sound bites, she does this kind of ghetto sort of accent, and it's fake. It's completely fake. So I thought that was interesting when I was kind of looking into her and what she did. And then I started looking into her as a lawyer and some of the things that she said. And I realized she doesn't know anything about the U.S. Constitution. So I have no idea how she got as far as she did by having no idea what she's talking about.
Well, I saw some of your videos, by the way, breaking down the Constitution. And you, as I am, by the way, are fascinated with the Constitution. But I actually think that makes you and me the outlier, not Jasmine Crockett. I don't think many members of Congress probably truly understand the limitation of their powers or even care to understand the Constitution. What I wonder if is an outlier, Josie, is the acting. Like you point out Jasmine Crockett's, street accent that she puts on in Congress. And by the way, you heard it there from AOC as well, girl, baby, girl. And I think AOC was raised in Westchester, and I don't know if she's privately school educated, but she's not who she's pretending to be there interestingly, not on the streets, but on the floor of Congress. And it got me thinking, I don't know how many politicians, I don't think as many as I suspect are former drama kids, but it got me thinking acting, how much of this, and I don't mean positionally and policy wise, Josie, like, I mean, politicians across the aisle, regardless of political party, feign passion on different issues and even fake positions on issues. But I wonder how many are actually acting. You know, I think about Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. They've done black accents in front of black audiences, you know? And I just wonder, like, how many of these politicians feel comfortable acting? Because I think you're right. What we see from Crockett and what we saw from AOC, that's drama. That's acting.
Yes. What I had seen from Jasmine Crockett when I had analyzed her video about the Constitution, she was talking about the border. She was talking about how Governor Abbott doesn't have any right to make laws that supersede the Constitution about the border. And she said this in 3 or 4 different ways in this little TikTok video. She was being interviewed by MSNBC. I think it was one of the corporate press. And so I realized what she was saying. She was citing the Supremacy Clause, which says that a governor can't make a law that supersedes the Constitution, which is correct. However, he was just trying to enforce the Constitution with a rule that already exists. Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution says that when the states are being invaded, it is the federal government's job to protect them. And if they're failing to do that, which they are, then that falls to the states and to the people under the 10th Amendment. And she was completely ignoring this and telling people that he's trying to create rules. He's trying to make laws that don't exist. And I don't know if she has if she's ever read the Constitution, as I have, as you have. It really seemed to come from a place of ignorance or a talking point that she was handed or something she didn't quite understand.
Yeah, I want to share with the audience a video. This is not your video, and people can go find you on X, the Redhead Libertarian, to see you kind of providing a constitutional rebuttal. But I want to give another example from that moment in Congress where you talk about, you know, her acting and her accent, because we heard mostly from AOC in response to Marjorie Taylor Greene there, but this is the rebuttal from Jasmine Crockett. Listen to this.
Mr. Chair, point of order.
Who's
It's me.
Ms. Crockett?
I'm just curious, just to better understand your ruling. If someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body, that would not be engaging in personalities, correct?
A what now?
Chairman, I make a motion to strike those words.
I don't think that's
Hold on.
I'm trying to find clarification on what qualifies.
Chairman, motion to strike those
I had no idea
words.
what you just said.
Comer's the star of that, by the way. A what now? It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing audio.
That's brilliant. I kept just rewatching that. I just thought it was so funny. It took me a while to figure out what she was addressing. Like, I was like, did somebody say that to her, or is she making that up? She was making that up. So Jasmine Crockett, who actually blocked me this morning. Is that legal? I don't know. But she made she's releasing a clothing line with all of her clapbacks. All right. And that's one of them. So she releases a picture with the shirt that says bleach blonde butch bad body or whatever. And under it says Crockett clapbacks, and she spelled her own name wrong.
I saw that. Yeah.
Rockrtt. And somebody was like, what does that mean? And she goes, you're just going to have to buy it and see. And I don't think she realized that she spelled her name wrong. But we're not dealing with the brightest.
No, not bright, but also just not real. And that's what I keep coming back to. Okay, look, I always try to put myself into check, Josie, on this stuff. Like, don't be a partisan. But I want to go back to that acting thing for a minute. I definitely think we can come up with examples of Republicans who don't believe positions that they advocate and feign passion and anger. I can't, and I'll rely on you if you can, I can't come up with a Republican politician that does fake accents and fake personas. You know what I mean? And I'm willing, if I'm forgetting it, audience, drop it into the comments of YouTube or Facebook, because I want to be real. I want to be honest, and I don't want to be partisan. I want to be correct. But this seems to be a privilege of Democrats to kind of put on this drama persona. unless I'm forgetting some Republican, Josie.
I can't think of any at all. Any accent is organic. Like Thomas Massey and Rand Paul are Kentucky, and they sound like they're from Kentucky. And when they speak to anybody else, they don't mirror them. Mirroring is something that narcissists do. And I think that a lot of people who get into power, as George Washington said in his farewell address, occupants of public office love power and are prone to abuse it. And I mean, a way to do that is divide and conquer, as we see the most, but also it's to manipulate. And so Democrats, when they get into power, and, you know, the Uniparty does this too. It is both sides that do this, but it's primarily in Democrats where they're going to mirror people that they think that they can have some effect on or have some power over. And that's minorities, you know, so they'll go into it and be like, I'm just like you, you know, and they're not, they're narcissists. So we don't really see people who, and I want to be careful with my words because I'm a libertarian. I don't favor someone over another. I'm not a big fan of Republicans, but I hate the Democrats. So I want to be careful with how I would say that, but I can't think of really a single redeeming Democrat that doesn't do that isn't in this for power and money. And I think that kind of speaks to how they abuse the positions that they're in.
One last point on this video. I agree with you on something. Look, these three are not Jefferson and Adams, but this fight is not what makes them less than Jefferson and Adams. Like, this is part of the American tradition. What makes them less than Jefferson and Adams is their intellect and their effectiveness. I got in this debate over the weekend with some of my Fox friends, like the role of etiquette. I'm actually not big on etiquette. You know, I don't care. I don't look at Washington, D.C. as this esteemed hall of prestige. But what I would like it to be is a place of accomplishment and principle and philosophy and understanding power. And I'll say to all three of these individuals, set aside etiquette. I just don't think it's effective. Like, what you're doing, it's not working. I don't think it's accomplishing any productive job. And again, it's not because you broke etiquette. It's just because, like, the substance of what you're contributing is so lacking. It's just nothing. At least Jefferson Adams knew something about a founding of a country.
They were brilliant too. They were geniuses, founded our country. We're not dealing with geniuses. We're dealing with midwit intelligence who think that they're smarter than they actually are. And those are the most dangerous IQ of all. So yes, I agree with you.
Well, I want to go into something you just said I found fascinating. So you said that's mirroring. That's a narcissistic personality reflection. So I want to move to Harrison Butker, the Kansas City Chiefs kicker, who gave a speech to Benedictine Catholic College, and he talked about the valuable role of being a mother, of being a wife. He said that he believes that women have been sold alive for probably half a century, that the most accomplished thing you can do in this world is to venture into careerism, to essentially follow the feminist path into doing what men have done, which is march off to work, bring home the bacon. That's the most productive life. He said it's not. Being a mother, being a wife is a much more fulfilling role in life. I found it utterly uncontroversial, but also rare and insightful. And it's not to say that women, can't and shouldn't and don't often pursue successful careers. It's just, hey, let's not forget the most valuable contribution to society, which is raising a generation. I want to play for you a clip from NBC Sports Boston. Now, Harrison Butker was crushed across the landscape of mainstream outlets. And of course, that was going to happen in sports. But I think the strongest clip came from NBC Sports Boston. Listen to this.
Contrary to what some may think, I actually strongly believe in free speech and the right to hold opinions that are different from my own. I also believe there are consequences for speaking out. But what I really believe is there is a big difference between an opinion and dehumanizing hateful speech. I am so tired of people telling those of us at the center of these dehumanizing rants that we need to respect everyone's opinion. No, we don't, and we don't have to tolerate it either. You are allowed to think differently than others. You are not allowed to go out of your way to belittle, degrade, and depict groups that don't look like you as subhuman. That's not an opinion. That is hate. plain and simple.
Josie, the best I can tell, dehumanizing, subhuman, she is accusing Bucker of that because he said that Pride Month reflected a sin, which, again, is utterly uncontroversial in the world of Christianity at large, Catholicism even more so. And then he is I'm not Catholic, so I don't know the correct terminology, but he is Latin Mass, strict Catholic. And he basically said living a lifestyle reflected in Pride Month is a sin. And that is what warranted that from NBC Sports Boston.
So that woman made, I think, 3 points that were completely wrong and completely contradictory. She said he was talking to her, which he wasn't. He was a Catholic talking to Catholics at a Catholic college. She said she loves free speech, but not speech she disagrees with, which then you don't love free speech. You know, that's the thing about free speech is you have to protect the stuff that you really hate. That's the stuff that you have to fight for, or you don't believe in free speech. And that means all the stuff that you see as hateful. And I'm Catholic, as you can see, Cabrini is a poster on my wall right now. And so I was born, raised Catholic. I believe he's Orthodox Catholic, which is going to the Latin Mass, which is something I didn't do. I'm Irish Catholic. So what, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Well, you made a Rick Perry mistake. You said there was 3 things she said. So don't make a Rick Perry mistake. Never make 3 points. You can always get 2, and that third one's a roll of the dice.
I'm like, I lost it. It's gone. I can't remember. It was so unimportant and unoriginal what she said that it just escaped my mind. But why he was attacked so hard is he spoke against the anti-human orthodoxy. And he was moved to tears praising his wife. She's his rock. You know, she raised the children. She's the primary caregiver. She homeschools. And he was just like, he had to stop talking so he could gather himself. This is not a man who thinks women are not important. I mean, I can't think of times where people have done that about women who are working, you know, like this is something he feels so valuable about that. And then he went on to tell men to be unapologetic about their masculinity. And he was speaking against the cultural emasculation of men. And this is another cardinal sin of wokeness is, and he was explaining why it's so dangerous, which is something they don't want you to know. It's important to have fathers in the home. It's one of the things that keeps children out of jail statistically. And it keeps them happy. And it shows they need that kind of masculine figure. There's a study that's done, and it was people who are in jail, how they were raised, right? 80% are in jail were raised by a single mother, right? You have the same chance of going to jail if you were raised by a single father or if you were raised by a mother and a father. Because being raised by a father, these are young men, being raised by a father, you're taught stoicism. You're taught to deal with your feelings stoically. You're not taught to use your emotions and your fists to solve a problem. You're told to have patience. And they don't want that. They don't want people to know that. They don't want you to know that if you're living for somebody else, then you don't have time to be sick and depressed and fat and lonely and medicated and a victim. And they're not able to have power over you if you're living for somebody else, because you want to have as much power as you can to be able to give them the best life that you can.
That's fascinating about single fathers. And I mean, I believe what you're talking about with stoicism. You know, when I segued into this conversation, I said, I picked up on you talking about narcissism and mirroring in politics, and particularly among Democrats. Mm-hmm. I know you studied, or you were set to study psychiatry at some point in your life. And one of the things I've seen you tweet about that I find fascinating, and when you first said it, I was like, is this a real thing? What is this? Like, you started talking about like cluster B personalities. And I think you talked about it largely within the context of the trans issue, and how many, you know, there's studies on like trans kids and the personality types of the kids that is a commonality, meaning there's higher incidences of somewhere on the autism spectrum, a whole host of other personality types. But what was more fascinating to me was the personality types of the mothers of trans kids, and that you were saying that a ton of cluster B personalities. Like, what is a cluster B personality?
That's narcissism, that's bipolar, that's histrionic personalities. That's where a mother puts her own needs before her child, uses the child as a prop. Munchausen's by proxy is like a symptom that falls within there. So 60% of boys who are trans kids have a mother with a cluster B personality disorder. 60%.
Wow.
The numbers, I'm so passionate about this because I raised a tomboy in Massachusetts before moving to Florida, and I saw the way they were kind of coming for her, you know? So the children that they target, and you need to think about this because it's alarming when you realize what changing a gender does. It's sterilizing a child, okay? They target gay children, foster children, indigenous children, children who are lonely or looking for a community. And they target, the autism is crazy. It's something like 80% of girls, right? And so these are the people that they also want sterilized. And at the same time, we know that there's an unhuman orthodoxy that we're dealing with on top of this. So they're trying to depopulate, and they're trying to sterilize the children. Migrant children, that's another one that's targeted. They're trying to sterilize the children who are less desirable in ways. So that's something that should alarm people when they realize who is targeted by this. And
that would be fascinating to as you said, like see trans boys and the connection to the mothers. And then I think with trans girls, it's a real social contagion phenomenon. It's a trend phenomenon where the girls kind of, it goes in, I mean, I think Abigail Schreier wrote about this, right? It's like it goes in clusters in towns or schools when it comes to girls. But I'd be really curious what boys, like you just said, what'd you say, 60% cluster B moms?
Yep. It's moms who probably always wanted a daughter, and boys who want to please their moms, boys. With girls, so tomboys, okay, for instance, I'm raising a tomboy, and they tend to outgrow it around puberty. They tend to kind of become more girly, which my tomboy did. So they don't kind of go toward that, I think I might be a boy thing. They're pushed toward that socially. They're told, oh, you dress like this. Have you thought maybe you're a lesbian? Oh, you dress like this. Have you thought maybe you're a boy? And that's alarming. Maybe you're a they, them. Maybe you don't know what you are. Maybe you're questioning. And so it's put into the heads of girls, whereas with boys, it seems to be put into their heads by their mothers and like a reward system, you know. So why would, like, every time they make mom happy, it's because I'm wearing mom's dress and her lipstick and she's so happy. And, you know, because it's like cluster B personality, it's like the newest bag, right? It's really fashionable right now to have a trans kid. You hit the woke points, you are original, you can go to the rallies, you know, everybody looks at you like you are special and you are brave because you are raising a trans kid. And it tends to be mothers who trans their sons into girls.
Well, finally taking this back to Harrison Butker, because the launching point was the cluster B. I find a lot of that kind of mindset, that narcissistic mindset, not just in politicians who mirror actions, but in media members who think that he's somehow degrading women. When I heard you use the term, and I certainly believe he's actually elevating women. Like this is a thing where you're celebrating like one of the most essential roles throughout the history of humanity, you know, in civilization, and saying, hey, women, you have something that you can do that no man can do, and it is so integral and should be celebrated. And by all means, you should feel fulfilled raising the next generation. Finally, I want to talk to you about Joe Biden. Joe Biden gave speeches this weekend. He was at Morehouse College. He was also in Detroit. All kinds of stuff came out of those. He called January 6thers erectionists, which is, I don't know, I guess that's better than insurrectionist to be an erectionist. He said that George Floyd was murdered and that if you're a black man, you know, the country doesn't love you. But I think maybe the most important thing that he said in terms of electoral prospects is he said, I was vice president when the pandemic started and Barack Obama sent me to Detroit to work with the mayor. We're not even talking about a close timeline here, Josie. And when I see that and him saying that, I know we had the announcement of the 2 debates last week, and then, of course, there's the rules, no crowd, mics turned down during one. I don't know if any rules can save Joe Biden. I don't know how he debates, and if he can't debate, I don't know how he remains the candidate for president.
Donald Trump was saying that he wanted to make sure that Joe Biden had a drug test, which I agree with, because there's no way he's done the State of the Union sober like he is. His eyes are bugged out. He doesn't blink. They know he's sick, and they get him all hyped up on something, some kind of amphetamine to just get him through the next speech. What we're seeing is a very sick man being exploited. And the thing is, this is great for the deep state. They can completely control him. He can do whatever they tell him to do. And he slips up every now and then because he's senile. But they're able to completely control this man and have their way and do their will while he is the face of it. So they'd like him to be the nominee. But it's coming to a point where he's having a lot more slip-ups. It's more obvious that he's not the one in charge of our country, and we look weak on a national or on a geopolitical scale because we have, Russia is getting bolder and China is getting bolder. And I mean, they were just together, the Xi and Putin, with their having a meeting, and they both had their men with the nuclear, with their footballs and in their cases right behind them. And that was a show of power, so they know that we're not being run by a president, that our system is broken and it's been infiltrated, and everybody's aware of that. So they don't know how long they can keep the facade up, and they need to get somebody else in there that they can completely control, if not Joe Biden. But right now he's the easiest thing because there's no pushback.
Do you think they will? Do you think Democrats will replace Joe Biden?
I had predicted last year in February that they were going to replace him with Gavin Newsom, but they really wanted to see Gavin Newsom go up against Ron DeSantis. And we saw that. We saw them debate each other and stuff. And that was something they wanted to see, that dynamic, because Gavin Newsom is charming and Ron DeSantis is kind of autistic. So there was a balance where he was going to look better. But now it'd be him up against Donald Trump, who is charming, who has those qualities. So honestly, I know they don't want Kamala in there because she's even worse when it comes to slip up somehow. She's not even senile. I guess it'll be, you don't want to think anything bad's going to happen, but I think, something might have to happen because he's convinced he's going to run another term in it. He's the candidate. I'm sure they've done up the ballots and he's on them. I'm just not sure what's going to happen. I assume they're just going to go through for another 4 years, and maybe he'll pass away in office, or maybe they'll take him out and put Kamala in, or I don't know.
It's short-termism to think, how does he debate? How does he stick through an election? The real question is, how does he serve another 4 years as president? Like that's the impossibility that's hard to imagine.
I think
you can check Josie out again. Go ahead.
I think they just want to get him in there and then figure it out after. I think they just don't want Trump in. They want to get him in, and then we'll cross that bridge after in the next 4 years.
And then the powers that be can honestly continue to do what they're already doing, maintain control in Washington, D.C. TRHL Official, the redheaded libertarian on X, also host of Spaces with Josie on X and a part of the Timcast network. I really have enjoyed. I'm glad to have the redheaded libertarian. Glad to have you on, Josie. Thank you so much for being on the Will Cain Show.
Thank you so much for having me, Will.